So we are discussing you as an associate or a patron as a leader. It's an important topic for three reasons. Number one, there are many patrons who are feared by their CUs. You know, they have to really plan how to go to see their patron. Is that a good position to be in? There are many patrons who don't see themselves as part of the CU in any way. Is that a good thing to be? And there are many patrons who don't quite fully understand what they are trying to achieve as being patrons. And that's not a good place to be. So we are discussing the work of associates or patrons. Those of us who are not teachers are called associates because we associate with the patron. We try to help him to help the students. But any teacher who is in a school is a patron, although he may not be the one recognized by the headmaster. But as long as you are a teacher inside the school, you are supposed to be a patron to those students. So when I'm talking about the patron, I'm not talking about the one who is appointed by the headmaster. But any teacher who is in a school and is born again, maybe he has been asked to teach let's say chemistry, but he is teaching chemistry, and in addition to that, he is supposed to be a patron to the young people. Paminas, am I clear?
Very clear, very clear.
Good. This thing you have to keep checking. You could talk to yourself. So that's really what my introduction is. So here we're talking about patrons, how they can implement an effective leadership program in the Christian Union in a contemporary world. Because the biggest responsibility of the patron is to ensure that the objectives of the Christian Union are met. When we began this series of trainings for ATD or Associate Training Days, we started by asking, why does a Christian Union exist? And we learned that the CU exists, number one, as a way of nurturing the spiritual lives of Christians in the school. Number two, as a way of mobilizing those who are born again to reach out to all the students, to all the teachers, and all the other workers. The responsibility of the CU is to ensure everybody in the school has been challenged by the gospel. Number three, the CU exists in order to create time for fellowship so that there is no loneliness for those who trust in the Lord. They may get opposed, get laughed at, but they have a Christian union where they can encourage one another. And finally, we have the Christian Union as a way of training young people for leadership in church and society. So when you are a patron, your responsibility is to work out so that those achieve the Christian Union can actually achieve those ones. So if you want to know whether you're a successful patron, it will be, number one, by our students growing spiritually. Number two, is there witnessing happening? Are there people in the school that have not been challenged with the gospel? It's not our responsibility to save, but it is our responsibility to share the gospel. Jesus is the one who saves, but it's us he has sent in order for us to share the gospel. And you need to ask, how is the program? What am I doing to ensure that the CU leadership is well trained? What am I doing to ensure that all CU members are getting training in leadership? Those are the things that we need to ask. But how do you do that? I think you do that by seeing yourself as a leader. Who is a leader? A leader is a person who goes ahead and has a group of people following. I mean, it's good to hear one of the leadership gurus says, if you call yourself a leader but nobody is following, please accept you are just taking a walk. You are not a leader. Because if you are a leader, people must be following. So the critical the critical requirements for leadership is influence. You are not a leader until you have become influential enough for people to voluntarily, deliberately follow you. Because how else are you a leader? So when you talk about the patron as a leader, we are saying, does he have influence that makes the young people want to go where the vision is? So what we mean by leadership? We mean influence. What we mean by a leader? We mean a man or a woman of influence. And it means that if you are a leader, you have followers, but you don't have subordinates. I don't have enough time to deal with this, but managers are people with subordinates. Those people give rewards and punishment. So therefore, you follow them, or you fail to follow them at your own risk. That's a manager. But a leader is totally different. You do not follow a leader because he has power. You follow him because you admire him. It is a voluntary choice whether to follow or not. So anybody, even if they are called leaders, who actually has powers that he uses that forces people to go with him, is actually not a leader but a manager. So you need to understand clearly, if when we talk about the patron as a leader, we are saying the type of patron who doesn't use kiboko, he's not trying to force his way, but he is such that the students will themselves voluntarily go to check what he wants. How can we do this? How can we? Because they admire him, they believe in him, they want to work with him. This idea of a leader is a very complicated issue in the sense that when you are a leader, power is with the followers, not the leader. Because we can agree, I'm going to lead you. But since you are following deliberately, next time I look behind, there's nobody. Because power is not with the leader. Power is with the follower. That's why when we talk about our president as a leader, unless he influences us, the next time he wants to be elected, we don't vote him. Because power is with the people. In leadership, unlike management, power is with the people. And we are saying we want to appeal to every associate and every patron to change the concept, instead of being a manager, to become a leader in his relationship with the students. So please understand that you have to find a way of people following you voluntarily. And since you don't have any power to give them, any marupurupu or anything to give them, you must look for what else can make them follow you. That is why the critical thing is to answer the question, how can the people you are working with, your group, admire you so that they are willing to follow you voluntarily? Admiring is a big, big issue. You can't have leadership if you are not admired. There must be something in you that causes people to want to be with you, that want to follow you. If you don't have it, you are certainly not a leader. But the critical thing is, the other word I put in my notes is trust. You must be trusted. You must be admired, but in addition to that, you must be trusted. Why? A leader takes people from an area of comfort to a new area. And you are taking them from their comfort zone to a place they are not sure about. Unless they trust you, they can't follow you. Because they can fear that when they go with you, you might go there and slaughter them ahead. So they will not be with you. So the critical thing is trust. And any associate or patron who wants to be a leader, he must be trusted. That's why you cannot say something carelessly. Like you tell your student something, and yet some of those students seated there are the friends of your cousin, or they are the friends of the cousin of your aunt. They know something about your family. Then you say something not true. They whisper among themselves, that's not true. I know the aunt. The moment they don't trust you, you are no longer a leader. They can follow you as a manager, because then they are subordinates. They have to do exactly what you say, but you will have lost them. Trust is a critical requirement, the currency of leadership. Trust is the currency of leadership. And therefore, what we are saying is that you have to work your way to be trusted. You must be consistent, predictable, and trustworthy. When that happens, and you tell people, why can't we have a rally with Karema girls? Let's call the Karema girls. They don't start thinking, why is she calling Karema? Might there be where the daughter is? They trust you. They believe in you. They will not have a lot of struggle following your idea because they trust you. And that's a very, very important. So the question is how to become one of those. A man that is admired or a woman that is trusted. Because when they do so, you will have influence on them. And that's what we are really talking about leadership. We are talking about gaining influence. The thing that will make you have influence and be trusted is consistency, I have said, a life of values. Because once you have values and you stick with them, you become predictable, you become consistent, people find it much easier to trust you and to work with you. Values are needed even for economic development. Somebody called Kenneth Major says, in recent years, the business world has experienced a disturbing decline in the expression of positive values. And I agree with him. His argument is that if leaders have wrong values, the mission of the organization may not be reached in the long term. Because the moment the managing director has wrong values, people will not trust him. That organization will not succeed. The same thing with the CEO patron. Kenneth Major argues that leaders need these values, and lack of them can explain the many failures in organizations, and that will be very, very important. Value is something intrinsic in a person. And even if you want to hide, because you can play games, your value finally break through and we are able to see them. So here we are discussing how to implement an effective leadership program in your Christian union, how to influence them. You must have a thorough knowledge yourself of the things you are trying to lead them to. You must have the foundation of the spiritual leadership. Understand it. Because if they are going to trust you to help them in the spiritual growth, you yourself must be spiritually mature. You must understand the position of a Christian teacher in providing spiritual leadership in high school. You must be able to say exactly what it is you need to do. And that will be a very important thing. Transformational leadership is quantified by love. So that when you are talking about this influence, people must sense that our leader loves us. Our leader is concerned about us. If that be true, they will trust you and they will actually follow you. If you have influence, you must have something that attracts people to yourself. I have said so far. It has actually been shown that for people to follow you, you need character. What is character? Character is what you are in the dark. Is there something? What can you do when nobody can ever discover? Whatever you can do in the dark is what your true self really is. Because character is based on true core values. What are core values? Core values are non-negotiable convictions. Things you believe in so strongly yourself that you can't operate outside. And if you do, you get what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. You have a lot of discomfort when you operate outside your values. You have heard the book of James says, faith without works is dead. What that means is that if you have a value and you are not living by it, you actually don't have that value. You say, I have faith, but the way you are acting does not show faith. The truth is you don't have faith. Somebody with faith cannot help but walk in faith. So because a core value is a non-negotiable conviction within you. And it is this thing, when you have it, that will give you the attraction that we are talking about. So that's how leaders get followers, because they have values, strong value. And I'll spend quite a bit of time talking about these values. You know, if you're a new patron, you must first of all gain credibility, which will serve as the ground for influence. Don't go to as a teacher in a new school and expect that they are going to trust you immediately. They need to watch you and see whether you just have a verbal testimony or you to live by your testimony. And there'll be a lot of tests, even in class. They will do something that annoys you. How you react in anger tells them what kind of a person you actually are. So you can be called patron, but if from when you are relating them in the chemistry class, they can see clearly what you say, not what you are, there will be a problem. You must gain credibility, and credibility is not a gift, it's something you earn over time. And it will be important that you understand. The same thing with those of us who are associates. When you go to a school, the first time they may not quite follow you. They will not argue with you, but they are not sure who you are. If you are sent to the same school several times and they can see you are consistent, they start trusting you. They'll start asking you questions. They'll start sharing their secrets. You will have influence on them. You see, trust is based on good character, but it's also based on competence. If you truly want to be somebody of influence, not only must you have character, you must also have competence of assisting them so that they can. So what we are saying is, and we have said so far, passing values can best be done by the family of origin. But other people in the community who are admired can actually do the same. But you have seen, when you are talking about people changing from one extreme to the other, counseling one-on-one will be something that is very important. You know, one of the things I know, when I was going through school in the 1960s, when I was in high school, most of the teachers those days were white. The majority of the teachers who were teaching in high schools were white. The Christian ones would try to invite us to their houses so that you got more influence, not just by them coming to the Christian Union, but one-on-one. And we need to find a way of doing that. You know, if values are primary beliefs that determine every decision and dictate every dollar spent, if that's what values are, primary beliefs, then the first port of entry for solving the problem, for example, you have tribalism in your school, is through our primary beliefs about people and their differences. So you can, and I'm picking it as an example, you have tribalism in your school. It is not a biblical belief. You want to help them out of it. Bernard shows the importance of personal values for any leader if the leader is going to positively influence others, especially to move them from the previous belief to a new one. To change students' belief system, he will need to change his own beliefs. The student must see you as accepting all tribes. Then show them that that's what the Bible says. Then he started helping them one-on-one. You know, Jesus led 5 values. Bill Hybels, another writer, says that Jesus had the values and qualities that gave him influence wherever he went. That's why leaders seek to be like him. To have similar influence, one needs to follow Christ's leadership style. Hybels also says that for a leader to truly be a leader of influence, he or she will need to have the fear of God. What one believes to be true is the core of his or her being, will influence the decisions he or she makes throughout his life. And so if you have a deep belief and fear of God, you will start making decisions and living a life that will be admired by the students. It's not the same message in 1 Peter chapter 5. Being shepherds of God's flock, which patrons are, that are under your care, serving as overseers, not because you must, or because the headmaster has told you, but because you are willing as God wants you to be. Not greedy for money. Don't do it for money, so that when students go for a trip, you take away part of the money, but eager to serve, eager to influence them. not lording it over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. That's what the book of Peter is saying. So, really, the work of patron is to set an example and to live an example, and then to seek to counsel people. To improve this social ability, because influencing is a social skill, you need all the character attributes yourself. Do you have self-confidence? Or you suffer from insecurity? You don't trust yourself? It will be very difficult for you to dare talk to students on personal issues when you yourself have not self-confidence. Good self-esteem. One cannot work on influencing skills with poor self-esteem or low self-confidence. And a patron or an associate must be happy with themselves. They must know their sins are forgiven by God, and God is willing to use them to help others similarly. You know, one must work on his or her inner game first, yourself, before you go helping the students. The inner game is belief system that one has of self, what you believe about yourself, what else do you believe about others? Because if you don't believe other people are valuable, it will be very difficult for you to be a good patron. And then, what do you believe about the world around you? That will give you a self-image and also to help you to have an image. If you love and value others, it will come out in the way you relate with them. The outer game is a social ability, social etiquette, the words one uses, body language, and everything else comes outside. But it all begins with the inner game, the belief system that you actually follow. You know, a leader should seek influence and not control. That's one of the things every patron needs to hear. If students fear you, there will certainly be a problem. Because what they do, they are fearing you. That there will be a problem. You know, have you ever heard of the joke? Power and authority is like soap. The more you use, the less one has. You know, you wash with soap, it becomes smaller. You wash again, it becomes smaller. If students just do what you are telling them because they fear you, you are continually going to lose that power. In the end, you can't help the student to move from wrong values to good values. So control is something you must avoid. The leader is not to succumb to the temptation to use power to achieve personal goals or to get people to do what the leader wants, regardless of whether or not the followers' heart agrees. That's why it will take you longer to explain to somebody why what you are suggesting is good, which verse in the Bible says it, why it would benefit them. The final result is the loss of one's influence on the people you are leading once you are using manipulation of people. You know what is to manipulate? You tell somebody something in order to get something. You lie a little here and there until people do what you want. When they finally discover they were being manipulated, you have lost them. Totally lost them. So, what we are saying as we go towards the end is that you need to model values. I repeat what I said at the beginning. The work of a patron is to help change values for initially the Christian Union, then by outreach to every teacher and every student in that school. But you can only get this change if you model the change. Leaders who live their values, pastors who model good character, have trustworthiness, and expect high credibility. People trust them. The passage in the Bible that supports this is Matthew chapter 7, verse 19 to 20. These three things give him such influence that the followers copy his values. Competence of the leadership, content of the message he gives, character of the leader. Influence means giving a chance to the people to decide whether what you suggest is good for them or not, which gives them a choice whether to follow or not. Some of us are so afraid that the people will not follow us that we tend to force them or to lie to them. If you develop this credibility, they will be the ones, you tell them to jump, they will be asking how high, because they believe in you. That is what we need to do. By the way, as I talk to patrons, I'm also talking to parents. That's what every parent is supposed to be doing. All these things I'm saying about the patron house are true. You need to become a leader, not a manager. Chances are, if you're a good example, they will end up following whatever you have suggested. On the other hand, manipulation normally gives rise to some kind of resistance. If that is the case, people may not end up doing or going to the direction the manipulator wanted them to go. You know, students are influenced when the patron leader has consistent, passionate beliefs. A leader's behavior establishes the acceptable norms of behavior for the rest of the organization. For example, if a patron wants to influence a Christian union, he or she has to be patient. Don't come with a new thing and ask them to do. Give them time to assimilate them. Allow them the full process to take place. The change process for a CU is not instant. Involve everyone in the creation of the value. Let everybody hear about it. Create a compelling vision of the future. Let them understand why that value will be useful for the good of the Christian Union. Then communicate expectations. What do they have to do? What will be the risks when they operate in this value? Then monitor and reward the right behavior. Recognize the people that are following the right behavior, reward them. That way you put an influence on others to follow. I have taken quite a bit of time, but let me summarize by saying 4 things. Number 1, what I'm describing is what we call servant leadership. That you, as a leader, because the patron is a leader and also is a leader, you have influence on those people. You have your pyramid upside down. The normal pyramid in business is we sit on top and we sit on people. The CEO is at the apex. But now if you turn the pyramid upside down, the apex is at the bottom. People are sitting on you. Your responsibility is to serve the students, to find out what their needs are, to go to the headmaster on their behalf, to talk on their behalf until they know. We as a Christian have no problem. So and so will talk on our behalf. He trusts us. He likes us. He loves us. He will do things. Servant leadership is the leader becoming the servant and looking and working for the good of the people who are his followers. And that's really what we are saying as an associate you need to do. Number 2, that if you want to follow this idea of values, you need to use questions more than instructions. Find out where people are. Only then can you move to the new level. Understand where people are. And you need to talk to people as a group, as a committee, but finally, one-on-one. That's why we encourage anybody who goes to preach in a school as an associate. Don't just walk away. After the Sunday service, seek to see the committee. Hear them out. Let them ask questions. That way, at a lower level, you'll be able to influence them. And that is something that will be very, very important. So I would encourage you to use questions as a basis. Number 3, and importantly, find a way of getting feedback. Feedback from people. Let them find a way of talking to people and finding out what's happening, the thing we suggested, what do you think of it, how is it going. Let the people feel like we are not following, we are together. They no longer say this is the idea of the patron. They start saying this is our idea. And so finally, my point is, always get a buy-in. Do not force anything on people. Let the people stop calling it your idea. Let them call it their idea, because they have bought the new idea, the new values, and you'll see the change that will happen. The meeting is back to Parmenas.
Wow. Thank you very much, Brother Nganga, for that inspiring, encouraging, and encouraging session that we have had. I believe all of us are challenged in one way or the other in terms of being better leaders, not only for our schools as patrons, not only for the schools we visit as associates, but also even for our own families. I think this was practical, very real, and may the Lord bless you so much. So for those who joined late, my name is Parmenas Kariuki. Today's topic is leadership. I believe that was inspiring and challenging as well. So to all of us, I would want to ask us if you have any question or any comments, please you can raise it on the chat, but also we can give a few people to raise a question on the group. Then we'll ask you to unmute yourself. But once one person unmutes themselves, please allow them to speak. Then we'll give you another chance. So let me give a chance for somebody to raise a question or a comment, and then we'll be able to proceed from there.
Maybe Prominence, I have a question.
Yes, Robert.
Can I go ahead?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
On behalf of the team that has been, have been working on these on these seminars,
Yes.
we have had a challenge. Many people have been invited for the training and the sessions, and in the group we have so many, and we keep on calling them, but the turn up has turned low. I don't know whether it is our leadership style that has a problem or what might be the problem. Maybe I can be helped.
You are right.
That's a very good one.
You are right. Since we are saying that people are followers, you can't force them. You must show them the why this is good to them. Then they buy in. Once they buy, they will come. Now, but they also may fail to come for genuine good reasons. We need to know about them. And that's why when this thing was started, we knew that the people on the ground, Robert, Karaoke, Cairo, the people on the ground are the only ones who would be able to spend time with the people. They know them and can get them to understand why is this useful? Why is it important? I think that we may have failed.
Wow, thank you. That was a good response, and for sure, it is a practical one, Robert. So we think also I think we also need to know what next now. Now that we know what is expected of us, what next? As you think about what next, let me give another person a chance to speak. I can see your messages on the chat. Thank you for commenting the session. I can see Brian, Gugi, and also Mercy's comments. So let me ask other members if you have a question you'd also want to raise to Brother Nganga. We can be able to take it from now. The silence is so quiet, and I believe silence means you have understood everything, or you have understood nothing, and my prayer is that you have understood everything. So let me ask James, with one question, I can see you have unmuted yourself, or comment.
I hope you're not drawing a question from me. By the way, I had a question. I think members are just... okay, let me talk about myself. I was just reflecting and also trying to form my question. And the question I would want to ask John, and I appreciate that he has had a lot of experience, particularly leading groups. How do you, what is it that you should do as a leader to ensure that a group is consistent? Because what happens, you start off very well, there's a lot of excitement, enthusiasm, and along the way, that enthusiasm dies, especially from the group. And the worst would be if the leader again dies off and the group dies. I just want to hear that experience because it is we experience that in many groups. You start off and at some point you are struggling, you are walking alone, like you mentioned that when nobody is following, then you are just having a walk. I would want to hear that.
Okay. Now, when more than 40 years ago, when we started KSF in Nyandarua, we tried to ask these same questions. And I would recommend exactly the same process we followed. Number one, we started KEAT without a formula. 1974 all the way to about 77, we were not properly organized. But they said that's not a very good idea. We need to come together and debate and find out what we want. How do we want to achieve it among the schools, especially then in southern Nyandarua and Naivasha areas. Now, it is in that meeting that the vision was born. And so you have a group of people who believed in the vision. And I can tell you, those people up to now, 40-something years later, are still praying for schools in Nyandarua and are still getting involved. Some of them are out of the country, and when we tell them, for example, there's a camp, can you sponsor? They still send us money because they understood the vision. And that's something that we need to understand clearly, that there are many people who join the meeting, but they don't have the clarity of what is it we are trying to achieve. Unfortunately for us is that there is a change continuously. In other words, the original people that met in May 1978 in Jabin High School, they'll be okay. But there are people joining continuously. So what did we do? We decided that each year we would have something we were calling a social day, when we just talked clear about, we just shared together about who are we, what are we trying to achieve, who are the individuals, and they talked. That way we were able to renew. By giving history, we were able to renew. Once we came as families. And we ate together. There was no ministry, just simply being with one another. So you need a vision for the people that began. But you need a method of passing that vision. And having a meeting once a year to just talk about who are we, where are we, what do we want to achieve, was something that helped. And 40 years later, the ministry is still going on because of that understanding for everybody who came. The third thing that helped us was the idea that we do not want to have, how do I put it? We don't want to have permanent leaders. In other words, you do not want somebody to be a leader, then when he leaves, the group will collapse. So you allow the leader to come out of the leadership when he is still in the team. The new person, if they are going combo, moving wrong direction, they have somebody within the team who can help them. That helped them, the movement to continue. And it also made people know that this group does not belong to Mr. Nganga or Mr. Mwenda. We were the original leader, was the chairman. Mwenda was the secretary. He was then a teacher in Jabini High School. But by us being removed and allowing, and we remain in a meeting, we are still in the fellowship, we are still in the ministry, but we are not the leaders. The new person understands this thing does not belong to one person. That way the new people feel, this thing, even me, one day I'll be the chairman. And you don't leave it to chance. We agreed nobody would be a leader for more than 2 years. The first year you are learning. The second year you deliver. So, and because we are just talking about leadership in terms of continuing the vision, which is what Robert is, James is asking, it will be important that is done. Within a few years, everybody had been chairman. So in the end, you are not proud you are chairman because anybody is chairman. And that's what has given the thing continuity. So you need to understand, and every group, Gideon's, every group I'm involved in, we create that idea. Repeat clarity of vision, then repeating that vision regularly, then ensuring there is no permanent secretary. That people keep changing office without moving out of the team, so that they help from below without a title. So that in the end, the group doesn't belong to one person or some few people. It belongs to everyone. That's really what I would say would help you. Whether you are in Sunday school or department, charge of Sunday school department, or you are charge of youth, try to use those principles and see how they will help to maintain the vision and a kind of a commitment for new people, they come with a commitment because they know this is not somebody's thing, it's our thing. James, am I clear?
Yeah, very, very clear. Thank you.
Wow, wisdom detected. He said wisdom does not shout, and you can hear it oozing from this man. So let me get another final question before, not final, I still have some 5 minutes I can give to somebody. So John Kariuki, you have unmuted yourself.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Karaoke.
Okay. I don't know whether I'm going to. I'm repeating, but I want to maybe to ask Brother Nganga to explain how maybe in leadership one can overcome the burnout.
Oh yeah, that's a different question from the others. You are not repeating at all. You are actually giving a new question. Now, we were talking about the group having continuity. But one of the things that gives burnout, and the other day I was invited by leaders in Nyali Baptist Church, which is in Mombasa, Nyali. And I was talking, they asked me to talk about leadership burnout. And I said at least 3 things. Number 1, you easily burn out if you are doing something you don't believe in. It's like a duty, it's like a burden. And you need to clarify how you should be using your time. So you are using it, you feel God has called you to this student ministry, it will give you energy in dealing with it. That's why I still go to high schools, and I was going to high schools more than 45 years ago. I was still going to high school. The first time I went to a school, I went to Karema Girls 1970. So that's 50 years ago. For the last 50 years, I've gone to one school or the other. Why do you do that? Because I believe God has called me. I believe students are important, and I believe that if you are able to mentor students, you actually transform the whole country. Because students are in school today, tomorrow they are the chiefs, they are the engineers, and they'll go with those values. So to me, that's the first thing. The second thing is you must have a manager called calendar or diary. You cannot, if you start being everywhere with everybody, there'll be a problem. You need to have time with your family, and that means you may have to cancel an invitation to a school so that you are with your family. So you are dividing up your time. You have time with your family. You have the time you are earning your daily bread, where you are employed or where you are running a business. Then you have time for ministry. And it's very important that you have that because that's what helps you. The white man said, the Englishman said, a change is as good as a rest. That idea of moving from one thing to the other helps you to relax and when you change. But another thing that I told them, and I want to tell you, is that you must force time for rest. You must rest. They actually say if you don't sleep 6 hours, not less than 6 hours in a 24-hour day, be very careful. Like, don't drive the following day because your body is not free. Now, if you have accumulated sleep, you can't cheat it. You will soon be sick physically. Or because you are doing more than the body takes. That's why the Bible itself taught us in every 7 days, 1 day must be totally rest, no work. And you need to do that. So some of us, of course, because we are involved in KSF, we are working. Then on weekends we are in challenge weekends. We never have a break. That's why we like recruiting more people, so that the people that are in this weekend will not be the ones in the following weekend. KSF work will still be going on because we have recruited enough people. But don't be the same person everywhere all the time. You must have time to rest. If you do that, you will not suffer burnout. Karaoke, that was a very good question. I hope I have given an answer that you understand. Karaoke, what did you say?
Adrian, could I ask a question maybe?
Not before karaoke
Or
says
rather,
whether. Let karaoke say whether I communicated.
Oh, yes, brother, you communicated very well. I've heard it well.
Okay, thank you. Let's now deal with Adrian.
Okay, mine is a request. You would mention something about nomination of CU leaders vis-a-vis election of those leaders. I think many times we tend to have the very popular people becoming the lead people, but in actual sense, you realize it doesn't work. Maybe how can we balance the two?
I think we need to make it a full topic in this training. I don't know whether the KSF manual was removed, but one of the trainings we must teach during the student leaders training day is how to change leadership. And you need to understand that not everybody who comes to see you can qualify. So even if you are going to allow elections, there needs to be pre-qualification where the people you are choosing among, you are happy with both. And that's why the patron must get involved in the process. Allow them to do elections, but only of candidates you have actually approved. That's what I would suggest. But I'm still suggesting we make it a full topic. I hope, Adrian, I've answered your question.
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Brother Nganga. I think the questions are very relevant to us. Peter Muraya, I can see your video on. Yes, it would be prudent to get your comment also. A question or a comment. I know I've ambushed. You can unmute yourself.
Yes, Brother Paminas. God asifiwe na wengine.
Amen.
Amen. Sorry, I was held in another meeting in the church.
Yes.
Where I forced myself to get out before the meeting ended.
Thank you.
To be together.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I made that you had really gone. Actually, you were coming, Brother Nana was finishing. But I want to thank God because of the way He has answered the questions that have come up.
Yes.
He ministered to me when I was in school, and I thank God that I am now in the fellowship to help the students.
Amen.
And by the way, Peter Muraya is a grandfather. So don't start thinking that. Yes. Don't start thinking he's a young man.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Allow me to reserve my comments for a social. And recognize Madam County Chair, Mrs. Mbuchi. I'm told she's in the house by Robert. Yes, you also would prefer to hear a lady's voice so that it doesn't become a men's fellowship. Yeah, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, you can unmute yourself and say hi. Is she still there, Lily? Robert?
She is.
Okay. Let me give her a chance. As she comes on, we can be hearing Mercy to
No,
comment.
I think she is there. Give her a chance.
Yes. When she comes on board, I'll give her a chance. So, Mom, don't worry. Mercy, are you there first? They say ladies first and men before, so at least you. And if Mrs. Bucci, you are there, please unmute yourself and speak. I can see Mercy has commented, so you may not be able to hear her audio, but she is listening. So, Madam Bucci, if you don't... Yes, James?
There are some people I had also invited. I'm not sure whether the questions are exhausted, but you may just want to ask whether
somebody has any question.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, people who are not necessarily in KSC and I've seen them.
Great, great. So let us give them a chance. If you have any question or comment, even if you came late, don't worry. I believe Brother Nganga will be willing to respond to any question, even if it was covered in the notes. So we welcome all of you to this fellowship. So I want to ask, is there any person who would want to say something? Or ask a question? Jesse Getao, we can hear your voice as you can even say a comment. Don't worry. Even if you came late, don't be worried. Jesse?
Would I be allowed to ask one question?
Yes? James?
You can hear me, I don't know. Yes, I still be using you. I'm just wondering whether the network is bad on my side. But I just wanted to ask John, Brother John, that many times, even you as a leader, you must have other leaders above you. And sometimes there are things you want to push is it to influence or to push your leaders to accepting so that you can lead well. Maybe I would just want to hear in the context of what we are doing. Some of us are employed or in business or, leading a group in church or even being a patron. How do we get to influence those above us so that they can better facilitate us in our leadership?
One leadership guru says you must use 50% of your time leading yourself, 30% leading those above you, only 20% leading those below you. So leading those above you is what will make the people be credible. If you are the type of person who got the headmaster and everything he says no, that's where the competence becomes an issue. So your followers will not trust you. They know you. They know you are helpless. You can't do anything. So you must learn how to manage your bosses. How do you get them to trust you? And to trust you so much that they will never want to embarrass you before your followers. That's the thing that you must do. As a CU patron, the headmaster is critical. So you must learn how to relate well with the headmaster. That doesn't mean you do wrong things, but that means you show him that you are a good teacher, you are a good staff. He can rely on you to help him, not just about the Christian union, but other things. He trusts you. If he trusts you and you go to ask something for the CU, he is unlikely to say no. In addition to the headmaster, you must also deal with your staff mates in the staff room, because they are the ones in the staff meetings that will oppose the ideas of the CU. Get them to trust you. That's really what we are talking about. So you do not lead one way down only. To get credibility of your followers, you must manage those above you.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Let me give this chance to any other person before we close with a prayer. And I would also want to give our guest a chance to say hi. So if you don't mind, you can even say hi. And if you have a question, raise it. And a comment, I believe it will be addressed accordingly. Purity Muturi, are you there? There's something? As Purity comes, unmute yourself. Jesse Gito, are you there now? Thank you very much, Brother Nganga, for finishing in time. That's why I'm getting a chance to for the people who didn't get a chance to introduce themselves, and especially now that you have guests on the room. Samuel Nyaga. And then Grace Mudhoni. Please say something. Yes, Samuel, proceed.
Yeah, I just want to appreciate my brother James for the invite. Actually, joined in as I was driving home. I've not been able to hear the entire message, but the bits I've heard, I truly appreciate. I work with the ministry commissioners, or rather, I am a member of commissioners for Christ Ministry, that ministry in high school. That's why it is very important to me and even all of us that are working in the students and preaching to them. Thank you so much, our speaker John, for sharing and enlightening us. God bless you.
Wow, thank you very much, Bwana Sam, and thank you for joining us tonight. We are honored to have you. Grace Modoni, I can see you are now on mute.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Bwana asifiwe.
Amen.
And I thank God for being able to attend the meeting, and especially that part of burnout. I think that made my evening. I've learned something. Otherwise, I'm okay. And I thank God for the opportunity to be with you.
Wow, wow. Thank you very much, Grace, even for joining us and participating in that comment. I believe we all grow because of the feedback we get. I believe, is there anybody that I have not given a chance? Adrian, can you check for me? Or James?
You don't have anything that that would force them or help them to in their desires to walk. And I think very important for you to ask yourself, is that what you are? Is that what you are living? Are you conformed or transformed? And that will be quite something. So we have said, if you want this admiration and trust that will make you have influence, so the students will be coming to ask you questions. They will want to, when they hear you, they want to do what you are telling them to do. We have said they must admire you, they must trust you. For that to happen, you must live a life that is transformed, not a life that is conformed. But I think the critical thing that will be required here is living a balanced life, not going to any extreme. That's what will make them want to walk with you. And I could spend time on that. But how do you influence other people to have your values? Because we have started by saying, for you to be a leader, you must exhibit what you expect your followers to have. One can change the values at different stages. The first level is the knowledge level. Help the students to have the new knowledge of the way life is supposed to be lived. To know what value to change is at the individual level. And you need to help by providing Bible study material, by inviting speakers. What they can do is give them knowledge. And that is already starting to influence. The second level is the attitude level, where it's not just knowledge, but you are changing the attitude. At this level, one knows and also feels strongly about the value. You can go beyond the lecture. You help the student attitude to know, this value matters. It may not be easy to follow it, but it matters. You are starting now to get where he has to trust you to move there. The third level is the behavioral level. You behave in line with the value in question, still at the individual level. Now, so here we are saying, you started by showing the student the new value, which he needs to know. Then you were able to counsel him, mentor him, so that he started changing his attitude. You only have been a good leader when they start behaving according to this new value. Of course, the fourth level of influence is where you are able to get the whole group, not just the individual, to start behaving in this new way. And that's what a patron is supposed to do. You start with individuals, until they are behaving in the new way, and then you can go to the whole Christian Union. You know, influence is crucial in passing values, because your responsibility as an associate or as a teacher is to change people's values. Some of them are crooks. Some of them are taking drugs. Some of them come from families that don't value Christianity. They have different values. Our responsibility is to help every boy, every girl in the school to change their values, to get biblical values, accept them, know them, and then start living by them. So how do you pass biblical values over to them? And we are now talking about the various target groups that we are supposed to be reaching. You know, one of the best ways of changing values is through the family of origin. And maybe if there is a way a patron can reach the parents, it could help. Because family of origin has a lot of influence on the kind of values a child will have. But it also could be through the community leaders. And that's where the patron comes, because they're a leader in the community. But it can also go to the level where you are counseling. You are actually spending time, not just exhibiting, but you are counseling. And counselors have a lot of influence in changing values. And putting people in a group that is good, and that's why the Christian is so important. Getting this new boy who has been a drug addict and put him in the group, you get group pressure that will help the new person to start having new values. That's why discipleship program, follow up after the rally, people who get saved, following them up, putting them in a group with other Christian boys and girls will help the person. Remember, you're answering the question, how can this leader influence the people to have new values? I've talked about counseling, and that every patron must be a counselor of sorts. This is usually done by people who are trusted, like elders, because in their wide experience in life, they are looked upon as being wiser than the younger members of the community. And that's what a patron is. When it is elders who are going wrong, then we have a problem, because then there is no age mate to advise them. There is also room for young people to advise elders, but it's normally very difficult to do that. So counseling is important. Find a way. You can't reach all the students. Maybe you have 500 students who are born again in your school. You can't reach all of them. Pick one at a time. Then